Windhager, Wood, inside 50, Wanganeen Miller! What a mark!
G'day everyone and welcome to the Game Day Squad Aussie Rules Fantasy Show. I'm Haz and alongside Pity, we are the Fantasy Bros. We've partnered with Game Day Squad to bring you everything you need to know to succeed in GDS Aussie Rules this season. Tonight I'm joined by Cal from Game Day Squad to help me preview round 21. We're recording this round preview show on Tuesday the 28th of July. Cal, how are you, mate?
Yeah, doing well, mate. Doing well. I'm just realizing now that you've probably timed this to get me on for my first Fantasy Bros appearance in quite a while. The weekend after Port just got smacked by the Lions. So I see what you've done here. Try to stick that one by.
Definitely not deliberate, that's for sure.
Did you go?
No, actually, it was one of the games that not classified in the membership. So just watched from home. And yeah, in the first half, I wasn't too pleased with the Lions, but yeah, they pulled their finger out, thankfully, in the second half, and yeah, got the job done, which was good to see.
Yeah, no, it was a good game. For the first half, I was there. Beautiful day for footy. Just a shame we couldn't stick around for the second half, but now I came for this, mate. I'm keen to rip in.
Yeah, it's good to have you, and like I said, yeah, obviously, Pity has put in the Discord. He is unavailable to get on this show because he does have a sick daughter, so he's having to look after her. So it's the first show without Pity this season. So I'm taking the reins. So might be a little bit rusty because I haven't hosted in quite a while. So we'll just get through what we can.
You're a vet by now, mate. You'll be fine.
That's
we'll miss your Pity, but yeah, you'll be fine.
So just a reminder to our viewers and listeners to make sure you have subscribed to all our Fantasy Bros socials so that you don't miss a thing this season. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TikTok, Facebook, and Insta. Just make sure you search at Fantasy Bros AU. And if you're a new coach who hasn't played Game Day Squad before, remember that it's not too late to get started. Just simply download the app or visit the Game Day Squad website, create an account, and use the promo code FBAR26 in all capital letters, and you'll be rewarded with 3 9-player common packs just for doing so. So let's get straight into it, mate. Around the grounds for round 20, how did you fare in standard comps and any special comps that you might be playing so far this season?
I've done no good, mate. I'm having a bit of a shocker of a year, as people have called out. I'm nowhere near on the leaderboard. So me coming top 100 at the moment is a win. So the only competition I seem to be doing any good in is the under 22. So getting to see my boy Levi in person the other day was good, but nah, mate, skip me. I did no good. Hopefully you did a lot better.
Yeah, it was one of those really stressful rounds for both Pity and myself. Obviously, there's so much going on in Game Day Squad Aussie Rules at the moment. We've got our GDS Classic Cup. We've got our Sunday Fantasy Bros Sunday Showdown finals have kicked off as well as of last week. So there's a lot on the line at the moment, as well as potential prize card selections. Only 3 weeks left in the season now. So yeah, there's a lot on the line. But yeah, one of those rounds that pretty good across the board. 5th in Fantasy Bros Sunday Showdown for me, which is enough to see me get over the line in my matchup in the first knockout week. I got over Fez, the legend himself. So the GOAT. So really, really happy with that. 5th in Fantasy Bros, 9th in Contender, 10th in Challenger, and 16th in Classic for myself. So
solid round,
three top 20 finishes in standard competitions. Very happy with that. 16th in Classic is obviously a good finish for me as well. That kept my seasonal rank at 7th overall. So pretty happy with that. Pity, he finished 3rd in Contender, which is actually quite surprising for him because he is not prioritizing that comp whatsoever. So I think he was a little bit surprised by that. He's certainly pretty stoked with that finish. He also had 3 top 10 finishes this round. 9th in Challenger, 8th in Fantasy Bros Sunday Showdown to go alongside that podium in Contender. So like I said, it was a pretty successful week, but at the same time, there were some selections that made us go, oh, what have we done? This is going to absolutely ruin our week. And we can see on screen, my scarf for the week was Lockie Neal, who toss of the coin last week to go between Lockie Neal and Ed Richards. And I did end up going Lockie Neal in Classic. And geez, that just was a disappointing outcome for myself. It cost me 64 GDS points, with Richard scoring 152 and Lockie Neal only scoring the 88.
That
He
hurts.
started on the bench and was barely cited in the first half, which I found quite interesting. They decided to throw Hugh McCluggage back in that first centre bounce mix, and he looked really good. So I don't know if it's whether or not they just see Lockie Neal potentially leaving at the end of the season, and they're trying to solidify maybe a new midfield core, or maybe he was just a bit of an in-game rest for him last week. But yeah, he was definitely not up to his lofty standards that he's been putting up so far this season. He was a little bit fumbly with his skills around the ground, and obviously we know he's silky smooth when it comes to those ground balls and clean possessions, and he just seemed to be a little bit off the pace throughout the game. And as we know, when it's not going your way, it's really not going your way. In the last quarter, with about 3 minutes left, he had a shot at goal, and I'm going, you beauty, we're going to get a 16-point play here. And he was denied by the footy gods. The ball bounced at absolute right angles and it decided to go through for a behind, and he couldn't even just manage to crack that 100, unfortunately. But as we say, so be it. We reset, we go again, and I'm not picking him this week in my sides, that's for sure. But that was counteracted and kind of offset by Jarman Impey, because he was just unreal for the second week in a row. And it wasn't a flash in the pan that potentially some coaches might have been talking about. Had Richmond the week before, obviously had that juicy matchup with the Bombers last week. And for those coaches that really kind of just went, yep, I'm going to back in the matchup and I'm going to play him, it was an absolute great call. 27 kicks out of 37 disposals, 12 marks and a goal for a season high 176 GDS points. And I did play that diamond in Challenger, which definitely helped to get me to that 10th.
You've nailed that. Yeah.
10th place finish there for the week. So, yeah, pretty stoked with that. But before we talk about pities, stars, and scars, mate, are there any that kind of come to your head? I know you said that you kind of a bit switched off recently. Any that you kind of had in your side that you go, okay, I want to give them a bit of a either some love or some bit of a rev up?
No, if anyone needs a bit of a rev up, it's not my players, it's me. I am very much going for weekly wins here because I'm nowhere in the hunt. So I pick a player like Callum Mills and he just puts up a stinker. I'm getting all the players I need, right? And like Naz, massive score, and getting him in the rarity. But outside of that, I'm just picking players that I really shouldn't be. But I was like a few people with the Josh Dacos. That score hurt. I thought I was doing pretty well picking Goulden, but then it just sort of fell apart for me there. So,
Goulden's a good pick. That's definitely a star for the week.
So I'm picking a few players like that. It's not getting the job done. It's probably why I'm not climbing, but it's my best chance here of finding some success for the rest of the year. So, yeah, you're going to see me. Don't be surprised if you see me one of these weeks finally hit it. But, yeah, definitely a few people I could be giving a rev up. But like I said, it's probably me that deserves the not the boys.
All right, so what I'm taking away from that is I'm going to keep an eye on the leaderboards in the upcoming weeks and going to see your name entrenched inside those top 20s to round out the season. But yeah, Goulden, that was a great shout. Obviously, a couple of coaches did decide to play him, and he was outstanding, kind of bounced back to form. And I think no doubt we're going to talk a little bit about him throughout the show. But we can see on screen there, pities, stars, and scars as well. Will Ashcroft, he just keeps getting it done. 153 points. He is a star in the making. Just really entrenched in our top echelon of mids at the moment. We don't want to say plug and play for him. We don't want to put the moz on him. But he's pretty much near plug and play territory at the moment, even though we haven't classified him in our plug and plays as of yet. And then alongside that, Callum Wilkie, 69 points. We went there just for a bit of a safe floor, and he put up a really, really poor floor score of 69 points. He just couldn't get in the game, and two games
in a row.
Yeah, two games in a row. I think Bales talked about it last week. He's not really the type of player that we normally target in our back lines as a defender. We like to target the halfbacks who get a lot of the ball and run off and get plenty of possessions, but Wilkie's been doing that all year, but I think teams are kind of starting to switch on a little bit to how important he is to their ball movement, making sure he's a bit accountable. And the Saints are actually playing some good football. So they're not just going back sideways willy-nilly, and they're actually trying to go forward with the ball and get it in Nasai's hands as much as possible. So, yeah, I don't think I'll be picking Wilkie in my sides for probably a couple of weeks unless it's a really, really juicy matchup. And he's got the Swans this week, so definitely not picking him there.
Yeah, he's sort of in that range where you got people like Miller and Impey now, where you can get a better, like from the way I'm looking at it, lower selected percentage.
Yeah.
And I'm going, all right, everyone's jumping in on Wilkie still. So, but then again, Wilkie just had 2 monster games before he had these 2 dud games. So I don't feel like I can ever pick him right. So he'd be, if I was following along with you boys all year, he'd be my stud and then he'd be my dud, like just consistently. So yeah, tough one to get wrong.
Yeah, that's it, 100%. But that does bring us to our GDS Cup update and Fantasy Bros Sunday Showdown playoff update. So last week, Pity played Fizzles and got the win, 3,325 to 3,176. He is now facing the good friend of ours, Janeth from the Supercoach Swordplay Boys in the round of 16. What a juicy matchup that shapes to be.
Unreal.
Who can come out on top. And I definitely will be giving away some of Pity's secrets throughout the show for you, Janeth, as promised. And I played a good friend of the show, Nate Daddies, and I came away with a win in a pretty tight battle, 3,336 to Nate Daddies, 3,230. I now come up against the mighty Hastings Hornets, who is sitting in second overall on the leaderboard. So it's going to be a very tough matchup for both Pity and myself this week. And we've got our fingers and toes crossed that hopefully we can continue on in that Classic Cup and move through to the round, the quarterfinals it will be next week.
The Hastings Hornets, tough matchup. Obviously took out our Classic competition last season. So, yeah, that's going to be a tough one. You're going to have to bring your A game for that one, mate.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it now. We know that the cream rises to the top when we got these cups on, and pretty much here on out in the knockout stage, you're going to have a hard opponent. So it's just about being consistent and making sure you just nail those picks and not really have that stinker of a week that really just ruins you. Some other pretty big matchups there as well. We got the big boys against Izzy. We got Danny D against Russman, who is climbing the Classic ranks at the moment. We've got Such as Fife up against Here We Go, Bales Nows against Mad Colson. So there's some pretty big matchups coming out this weekend, and it might see some higher ranked coaches potentially fall in those seedings, which would be interesting to see next week.
Well, we've already seen a lot fall. So, yeah, it's the beauty of the cup, right? Yeah, if you make it to the end and you win it, you've done damn well because it's hard to do. So, yeah, good luck to everyone still fighting it out. I've been out for weeks. So, yeah.
Did you manage to get a win at all?
Yeah, I got I think I came third in the group and lost on points 4.
Oh, okay, so close.
Yeah, but then I'm looking, Danny D was in my group, and then Skipper, I think, is lost last week. So he beat me and then didn't even go on to finish the job. So disappointing, Skip.
Disappointing. Good to see Danny D there flying the flag for your group, and no doubt he'll go a long way in the cup and potentially take it out as well. As we know, he is absolutely loaded. But that does bring us to our Fantasy Bros Sunday Showdown playoffs. As I said, we've got so much happening here at GameDay Squad at the moment. We'll just do a bit of a quick results from those weekends. So as I mentioned, I did play Fez. And it was just really thanks to my Diamond Naz that got me over the line. I've also played an All-Star Zorko and Platt Washi, so kind of just loading up on salary and on the right players. I did have some pretty poor picks. I didn't pick Jai Simpkin for some reason in my forward line. Kind of loaded up on Saints instead, and some of those boys were just a little bit underwhelming. Mason Wood and Max Hall didn't really live up to the standard I thought they would. So definitely left some points on the table. So going to regroup. Hopefully nail my diamond again this week in my matchup with Janeth, actually, funny enough. So I have Janeth in the Sunday Showdown. Pity's got him in the Classic Cup. So it is a Fantasy Bros versus Janeth week this week. And Pity had the bye after securing not only 1, but 2 tickets through to the finals. And he's facing good friend of ours and game day squad partner Zonald in the round of 16.
They are some good matchups. Again, I was nowhere close to getting a wildcard spot this year. I couldn't nail the formula for your Fantasy Bros Sunday Showdown.
It is hard.
I just couldn't get it right. I'd swing too much, and yeah. So best of luck to everyone still going in that. That's a lot happening, like you said, which is exciting.
All right, that does bring us to our round 21 fixtures. We'll just quickly go through these. So in our Stats Lab primetime fixtures on Thursday, 30th of July, we have the Pies versus the Cats at the MCG. And on Friday, the 31st of July, we've got Freo Dockers versus the Bulldogs over in the West. On Saturday, the 1st of August, we've got the Saints versus the Swans at Marvel. We've got Hawks versus North down at Utah's in Tassie. We've got Port versus Giants. Carlton versus the Lions at Marvel to round out Saturday, which brings us to our Fantasy Bros Sunday Showdown fixtures for playoffs round number 2. We've got 3 games this week, which is going to make it a little bit more interesting, some more players to pick from. We've got the Tigers versus the Eagles, Suns versus the D's at People First Stadium on the Gold Coast, and rounding it out with the Bombers versus the Crows at Marvel. So some pretty big games. What game kind of gets your attention drawn to it for the week?
I really am interested on the Thursday night game. I think that's going to be a biggie, just because from an AFL point of view, just seeing how that goes, that's going to have some big contention there. But then obviously the day cost factor. I know all eyes are on, which I'm sure we'll talk about after. But I was just checking the fixtures before. Port's favourite. That doesn't happen very often. So I'll sit down Saturday night and might see my team win. But good to see that there's 3 games back on a Sunday. I always prefer when the Sunday Showdown has the full slate. It makes you feel a little bit better about your squad. Changes things up a little bit, but like I said, it never seemed to actually eventuate for me. So, yeah. What about you? Is there a game?
For me, I think it's going to be the Lions Carlton. I think obviously Carlton finding form, pushing for that playoff spot at Marvel. We do tend to always kind of not go great against Carlton at Marvel for whatever reason it is. So I just think it's a must-win game for the Lions, and obviously be tuning into that one quite eagerly. So that, other than that, I think Freo versus the Dogs over in the West could also be a cracker of a game. Obviously, Freo's top of the ladder, and they're pretty much trying to lock down that top spot. They only need a win this week, and I think they've pretty much secured the minor premiership. So you'll be interested to see how that game goes as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Alrighty, so let's get into our positional previews for round 21. So we're going to start off with our defenders as always. We've got our plug and plays: Lockie Ash, Lockie Whitfield, Nasiah Wanganeen Millera, and Dane Zorko. Just quickly on Nasiah Wanganeen Millera, he actually broke the game day squad record for points scored last week in a single game. How ridiculous was that?
Yeah, he's pretty good. I think he's got one of the highest selected by percentages in the game, if not the highest last time I checked.
Yeah.
And
insane. Rightly so.
Rightly so. And it's just go out, put as much salary cap as you can on him. Insane. Yeah. He's had these games, like you said, he just outdoes it. So I genuinely thought there was a bug in the game when I saw the score, because I was ridiculous. Like, oh no, it's counting his point score multiplier as his base. No, he just went nuclear. So I was like, sweet.
I think anyone that played just a bronze in potentially classic or whatever was probably really left hurting with anyone that had the salary, because obviously with the bonus on top, it was actually a pretty big difference, and sometimes you don't really notice the difference in salary, but it was definitely noticeable last week. I was lucky enough to play a plat in classic, which definitely helped me, and I know some other people definitely higher up the leaderboard, and potentially people that got knocked out of the cup might have maybe just looked at the potential tag flag of Finn O'Sullivan and just gone, I'm going to play it safe. I'm not going to fade him. I'll play a bronze or a silver, and potentially just lost some points that way, which would have really hurt. But he was just absolutely unreal. And another one in our plug and plays, Dane Zorko. He did pig out last week against your boys at the Gabba. But he does come up against the Blues this week, who are the 3rd most restrictive matchup to opposition defenders this season, and the 2nd most restrictive most recently. So It's not a great matchup for designated kickers. It is the clear worst matchup for designated kickers this season. They score negative 16 fantasy points, which is below the average in the last 5 games.
Yeah, wow.
So,
Okay.
yeah, just one to note if you are looking at a Dane Zorko this week. In the last 5 games against the Blues with Taylor Byrne, he's been the one that's keeping these designated kickers a little bit accountable throughout the game. We saw John Noble struggle last week. However, it was Houston and Jacobs went all right the week prior, 137 and 94. We just know when Zorko is fit and firing. There are a little bit, couple question marks at the start of last week, whether he was going to be good to play after a bit of an in-game rest against West Coast over in Perth. And obviously got named despite the easy matchup at the Gabba on Sunday, despite the ladder position. And yeah, he just came out and really reminded coaches of that pig that he is. And he just demands the footy. So I do find it really hard to potentially fade a Dane Zorko this week because he does have one of those elite ceilings in our back line. But as Pity did note, that the matchup's just not really there for him. So there are some really good options in our defender line this week, as we're going to talk through. It is one to think about for coaches, and I don't really know which way I'm leaning just yet with a Zorko. It's one I'm going to have to think about leading into our Thursday night lockout, and that is not me being discreet or not trying to reveal my cards. I honestly just don't know
In your
which
key
way.
cup matchups, you just keep them close to your chest.
He's one that I think I want to play because I know he's going to be popular. But yeah, the matchup. Anyway.
Yeah, for me, from my view, just looking purely weekly, I can't ignore that upside. Like he has been up, down, but I'm going to play him because I'm going to feel worse about not playing him.
Yeah.
If I wanted, and obviously Wilmot's had a big drop off since he's been back.
Has.
So I'm going to be playing him, but I get the reason not to play him. So
just another point, failed to turn up in their earlier matchup at the Gabba this season when fit. So there is that as well.
It was a weird game. Carlton almost came back and won.
It was a very weird game. I was at that one. But saying that, I do think we have 3 very genuine options for round 21. Miller and Impey return once again as options after last week. I think it's just hard to ignore Miller. He's got the Bombers matchup. I don't think we really need to say much else. He scored 130 last week against the Pies. They have been the 3rd easiest matchup for defenders in the last 5 weeks, while they're 2nd easiest for the season. So just on that, I think you're nearly plugging him in. However, there is one flag. He is carrying a bit of an injury. He is apparently got a sore calf at the moment, I believe. He didn't train today, but apparently there is no concerns around his place in the side for Sunday. So just one to watch. I've still plugged him into my sides for this week, and I will have a contingency plan just in case. But I think don't have to really look too much into it. Matchups a tick, forms a tick. Still no Rory Laird. I'm just plugging him in. What about you?
Yeah, no, big circle on the versing Essendon fixture this week. We saw what Impey could do last week. So I'm even thinking about Josh Worrell. That's how far I'm going down as in my pod world. He's not on your board, but so if I did, I'm playing one of them. And if Miller doesn't play, obviously with the injury, then I'm definitely playing Worrell.
Yeah, so that's my contingency. I think I will have to have a pivot option, whether that's Noble in the game before or whether it's Worrell in that game. So, yeah, definitely one to consider. Obviously, if Miller is ruled out, then Worrell could be a very good shout. And yeah, as I mentioned, the game before, so Johnny Noble might have to be part of that contingency plan. That game kicks off at 3:20 at People First Stadium. So if there is a little bit of news around Miller being a late out, then obviously you do have to bring Noble in before that locks out at 3:20. But I think he should be good and he should bounce back this week after a disappointing score last week when he scored 75 against Carlton. We've talked about it all season. He scores better at home than he does away, which is something coaches like to target. Against the D's, should be another nice John Noble game. He is a scary watch when you don't have him in your team because you just know he can rack up the points so quickly. And obviously, he does have a monster ceiling as well. They've been a bit more neutral, the D's, that is, recently for opposition defenders / designated kickers. And that is a potential little flag for John Noble this week. But his last 3 against the Demons, 113 in round 4, 126 in round 16 last year, and 142 in round 3 last year. History's on his side, back at home where he likes to score well. D's have been a good matchup for course of the season, even though the matchup data for recently says they've kind of changed that. I think he's a very good option this week.
Yeah, I'm actually going the other way. So
Okay.
I just haven't seen enough in the last month with him to warrant it. I know he's obviously got the strong average, but yeah, the last few games, it's been he's had 2 good games, like 2 big John Noble games in the last 2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to see a little bit more, and because he's so highly played, and what's the number he's got? Yeah, up over 20%. He's someone that I think a lot of people will play, and he's someone I'll probably be looking to avoid.
Okay, I don't.
But
mind
again, I don't remember where I'm sitting on the leaderboard.
I don't know. Good insight. He's definitely one that you are right. He can be up and down, and the form, the role has changed at times throughout the season, basically at a drop of a hat. He is one that obviously is under the blanket for potentially him, Zorko. One of those pods on screen as well as one that I'm also considering. So yeah, got to find some room for potentially 2 of them. Just got to work out which 2.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us to MP. Obviously, he was my star from last week. Don't have to talk about too much about his recent form. He does come up against North this week, and they've been really good recently for opposition defenders and designated kickers. They're the 5th best matchup for opposition defenders, number 1 best matchup for designated kickers recently by an absolute country mile. They are plus 13.5 fantasy points to their average for designated kickers. They've conceded scores of Naz 231, Hill 152, Bowie 123, and Jacos 168 over the last couple of weeks. Points galore. However, he hasn't scored well on them in his last 2, 67 last season and 81 in 2024. However, I think you can just take that with a grain of salt. I think he's in form. He is still no Carl Amon in the side, so he will be their main ball user alongside James Sicily in that back line. The only thing is the venue. They are not playing at the MCG this week. They are playing at UTAS down in Tassie. Obviously, colder venue, smaller ground, potentially maybe limits his ceiling a little bit, but I'm still keen on him just based on the form, the role, and yeah, it's hard to ignore the North matchup recently.
Yeah, he's very hard not to play after his 2 big weeks. But you lost me before when you said Naz 230. It still doesn't sound real. Yeah, I've been burnt so many times trying to chase the hot hand with a player like Impey.
Yeah,
but he's definitely in around that conversation. I probably have him knocking on the door. When's that game? Saturday,
Arvo.
I reckon that's one where I'm sitting there Saturday. He's at the early game as well, which is the early Saturday game is when I make my worst decisions in and out of my squad. So he'll be there. But that is a good one. He's a good one. And Sicily also hasn't been too bad as well. So
yeah, not a bad shout. Once again, he was pretty good last week for the coaches that decided to do the double. I think Sicily scored 118, so very respectable there.
Yeah.
And it could be another good shout. I think he does kind of like playing at UTAS as well from memory off the top of my head. So I don't mind that one. But we can see on the screen points of difference. So our pods for the week. Pitty is doubling down once again on Lawson Humphreys. He was so keen on Lawson Humphreys last week in the matchup against the Ds, and so much so that he had to get Bales to talk him out of it because he would have had Humphreys in his classic side, which I think potentially maybe might have cost him the week because he would have had Humphreys and Wilkie. So, yeah, he did end up on an 89, but it is definitely subpar in our backline when we know we've got our players that can go 150 plus with ease.
yeah.
But the thing is, within that 89, he did have in the third quarter, 53 GDS points alone. He just didn't really do much outside of that. So there is potential upside there. He is definitely one that is hard to predict when he will hit a good score, but there are some reasons why he presents as another pod for pity this week. Collingwood are a better matchup for designated kickers than Melbourne. Obviously, we saw last week Wayne Miller scored well in that matchup. Collingwood shut down Tom Stewart last time they played and may look to maybe employ a similar strategy once again. And Lawson Humphrey scored 123 GDS points in that game. So he could be maybe a pod for some coaches that are maybe looking to, make up ground or have a bit of fun in this back end of the season with nothing to play for. I think he could definitely do worse than a Lawson Humphreys this week.
Yeah, I just haven't seen enough upside from him to even think about playing him classic, let alone have actually had him sitting there. Pity. I don't know what that would have been a bit nuts. But he'll be in my primetime squad.
Yep.
But that's about it. That's all Lawson Humphreys. Again, I just have good quarters, but hasn't had those huge games of late. So I'll be looking somewhere else. McCarthy is an interesting one though, because he is someone that I was looking at. So take it away.
Okay, so McCarthy, this is probably the pod for me. The matchup is definitely there. Playing Richmond at the MCG, they are the best matchup for opposition defenders in the past 3 weeks. Third best for this season, sixth best matchup for opposition mids recently. Second best matchup for the season there as well for the mids. So whether he's a mid, whether he's a defender, he's going to score points. McCarthy has scores of 112, 99, and 123 in his last 3 games. He's shown a ceiling in round 13 as well when he scored 153, and in round 6 when he scored 131, and that was against the Power and the Freo Dockers respectively. And obviously we know the Dockers are a very tricky matchup this season. He played the Tigers in round 8 and scored 116 GDS points over in the West. His only game at the MCG in his short career came in round 11 when he played Collingwood and he scored 119 GDS points. So if you are looking to target a matchup, it probably has to be the Tigers, just purely based on the scores they've conceded recently. Last week, they conceded 126 to Lockie Bramble, 106 to James O'Donnell, like 2 players that you probably never have thought that might score 100 in their careers. Hawks, obviously, Impey, 165, Sicily, 116, Battle, 110, and the Demons the week before, Jake Bowie, 159. So there's some ceiling scores in those last 3 weeks that I think Tom McCarthy could potentially look to add his name to that list. So I definitely don't mind Tom McCarthy this week.
Yeah, has a little bit more ownership than I thought that he would. So he's sitting at 12.5%.
Okay.
Which is somewhere between a Caleb Daniels and a Colby McKercher, just for context. But I was hoping it'd be a little bit lower. Not going to lie, because I did like that matchup as well. So I'm on the same page with you there. Yeah, cool. I'm still thinking about that 150 he had only a few weeks ago. And if he's going to repeat it, Richmond's definitely a good matchup to try that for.
I'm just looking at their kick-in data as well. Just bringing up quickly.
When's that game? Sunday afternoon. So, lock him into your Sunday showdown as well.
100%. Lock and load in Sundays.
Bit of salary cap.
Exactly right. So, Tom McCarthy last week had 8 kick-ins and played on 7 times. So, got the monopoly there. The next best was Marcus Herbert with 4 kick-ins. So, against the Tigers, I know the Tigers are struggling and they might not get a lot of shots on goal, but there could be chip back into the game, that's for sure, for Tom McCarthy. But in the same game, one that we're not keen on is Jaden Short this week. He did pop one of those ceiling scores that we know he is capable of doing, 147 GDS points last week. And Pity said that he was kicking himself for not picking him. But I said to him, you can't be saying that. He'd been in horrible form weeks before that. So 79, 71, and 90. With a high score of 115 in his previous 6 games before last week, which just showed that you couldn't really pick him with any confidence, especially not when it's knockout cup time. So it's just one that I think you talked about it earlier, chasing points. The West Coast, they are a decent matchup on paper. but I think you need to think twice. He should still end up probably being okay. Bailey Dale went all right a few weeks ago, and it took him a bit to get going. But we know the reason for that is they have Milan Murdoch, who looks to shut down their best ball user off halfback. So it's just one that I'm not looking to touch. His last two against the Eagles, 100 in round 8 this year and 73 last year. So one that we are looking to avoid completely.
Yeah, there's just too many good options around. He's just, I don't know if I could field 2 squads of defenders. I don't know if he'd make it into the second squad. So yeah, no, won't even consider him.
Yeah, and then we got there, obviously, our primetime pod is Kyle Warner, Sunday superstar Wayne Miller, and then under 22 player watch is Connor O'Sullivan after his good game last week. Now, you mentioned it earlier, probably the discussion point for the week and the decision for most coaches, Nick Dacos against Oisin Mullen. Now, what is your first initial thought when it comes to this matchup? Are you going to play Nick Dacos, or are you maybe just looking to maybe lower some salary on him?
My strategy is going to be, I'm going to do the opposite of what I think the majority does. And at the moment, he's still the second most selected player in all of GameDay squad.
So you're fading.
So I'd be fading him. But if that number drops considerably after Thursday night teams and when most people jump on and change, I'll probably be doing it. But that again is purely playing it the other way. I hate when I'm trying to avoid a tag with a player and I sit there and the player's absolutely teeing off and I'm going, what do I do? Because you see it happen so many times, and sometimes the tag works, and it has obviously worked on Dacos in the past.
Yeah.
But he's just so good. I'd rather back the player in. But in this instance, in my situation, I'm definitely going to be going against the grain if it stays like that. But you probably are thinking more from I'm trying to pick it to win cups. So your opinion is probably a little bit more important. Which way are you leaning?
At the moment, I'm leaning in the play lower salary category.
So like the hedge.
Yeah, just that hedge play, not fading him completely, just knowing how well he can potentially go if he does get off the chain and break a tag. I know Mullen is the best tagger in the game, and it's very unlikely. But Dacos, his lowest score of the season has been against Oisin Mullen when he scored 112 in round 9. He's only had 2 other scores under 120 GDS points for the season, which just shows his consistency, his upside, his ceiling, all of those. The reason why he's probably that number 1 plug and play, highest averaging player in the midfield. But obviously you have to recognize Mullen. He's kept Cozzy to 82 GDS points, Naz to 64 GDS points, and Callahan to 96 GDS points in the last 3 weeks. So it's definitely not a good matchup. He will definitely get Oisin Mullen. There's no way around it.
Mm-hmm.
And the Cats are the worst matchup of his career. So I can definitely understand why coaches might fade Nick Dacos this week. And I think from memory, that was the discussion point in round 9 when they came up against each other. And for those that faded, 112, he definitely didn't burn you. But I'm just scared of potentially what might be on the other side of that 112 if things just get go his way a little bit. So
that's the case. That's the case for him, though, that in his worst game, he scored 112, which would have put him as just an average as the 15th midfielder average. So, like, it's not like we're talking 60. So I understand. I probably the smart play is what you're doing, right? Where you're going, right, I'm not going to go big on you, but if he does go massive, then you've still got him in your squad. So that's probably like I said, the right way to play it. But if you're chasing a round win, come join me in not playing. And probably at halftime on Thursday night, I'll be sitting there being like, well, there's my prime time done and my classic done for another week.
Well, fading him in prime time as well.
I don't know. We'll see. Yeah.
Now, I do have an asterisk also next to Bailey Smith because I just wanted to flag that he has now become the clear candidate for opposition teams to tag after Max Holmes went down with injury 2 weeks ago. And Ed Allen, I think he will go to Bailey Smith this week. He has done some run with roles recently. Last week, he went to Jordan Dawson and kept him to 116. And Dawson was on about 80 at halftime. So definitely kept him quiet in the second half. He went to LDU for his score of 73, and he went to Nando for his score of 97 over the last 5 weeks. So just a flag that I think that maybe might limit Bailey Smith's ceiling. He did get some attention from Joel Fitzgerald last week, and it resulted in a score of 114 GDS points. But saying that the role is still going to be there for him. He is the clear number one CBA player at the Cats. He'll run all day. He'll work up and down that massive ground at the MCG. He did score 150 GDS points in round 9, but he didn't get any attention in that game. So he's one that I'm still looking to obviously play with probably some salary, but you might maybe not load up max salary like you probably might normally would.
Yeah, obviously it's a really small sample size since Holmes gone down. So obviously you don't want to overreact to one lower Bailey Smith week. He's definitely had enough to keep him in that plug and play. But yeah, maybe you're not. Yeah, like I said, maybe it's pushing all the salary on him, but you'd still think he'd be in most squads, and I think he still is in most squads. So
yeah, no, completely agree. Now, another one in the plug and plays. I know they are plug and plays for a reason, but I do have some concerns also for Marcus Bontempelli this week. Last week, I decided to play his all-star card in my classic side and try and get the benefits of that 1.35 multiplier. And at 3/4 time, when he was sitting on 77 GDS points, I had the thought to myself, what have I done? My cup run is over.
I did the same, but minus the cup run concerns.
And then in the last quarter, I was watching him like a hawk, and thankfully, 62 GDS points in the last quarter to bring it to 139 GDS points for the game.
One of the all-time fantasy saves. He's done that. He's done that before though, Bont, where he's had a shocking 3/4, sometimes halves, and then just goes nuts. So
yeah, so that's my flag. He is becoming a extremely difficult watch for big portions of the game, and just finding ways to kind of drift forward, impact the scoreboard late in the game. His mark numbers were down, tackle numbers were down once again last week. So it was really relying on high possession, goal impact to get that ceiling score or get his scoring up there. But however, he does come up against Freo this week, and this is the flag for me. They are the hardest team for midfielders to score against, and they are playing at Optus Stadium, which is the most difficult venue for players to score at for the season. So it just does not really bode well for Bont and his scoring this week. They are, however, his favorite team to play against. In his last 4 scores against Freo, 128 in round 8 this year, 165, 168, and 107. So read into that as much as you like. Yes, he's got the good scoring history, but I'm just going to base that more on this year, his scoring pedigree recently. He's only had 2 games over 150 GDS points this year, so I feel like his ceiling is really capped in this matchup. If we kind of look at the big names who have played Freo in the last 5 weeks, Goulden 123, Heaney 100, Clayton Oliver 119, Callahan 110, and Noah Anderson 138. So
mixed bag. Yeah.
It is a mixed bag, and it could go either way. I just don't know if I could potentially put myself through another hard watch and really kick myself. But I also know that I could potentially be hiding behind the couch on Friday afternoon, Friday night, knowing my round could be done and dusted by the end of that game.
Yeah, I think you guys are generous to still have him in the plug and play. I don't know if I'd be putting him in the group with the other 3.
Yep.
Obviously, he's the man, but yeah, particularly this season. Yeah, I think he's sort of in that next tier for me. That, hey, is the matchup good? So I probably will be considering him, but if you're ever going to take him out of the plug and play group
this week,
yeah, I don't mind it. And like you said, yeah, tough matchup as well. Bit of an unknown matchup with Freo too. So yeah, maybe Freo are done. They've locked up first spot, and maybe the Dogs come out and blitz them. Who knows? So
don't do that. That's scary. Oh, I don't know what to do now. Anyway, 3 options for round 21. Is there anyone in particular that you would like to talk about, or is anyone that's been?
Hey, listen, you put Horn Francis on the screen in front of me. I will talk about Horn Francis. I don't know if anyone else wants to talk about Horn Francis. The guy's finally getting some consistency this year.
He is.
which is good. He's had a really good month of footy, which is awesome. I still don't know if I'd trust him if I'm in a cup though, and I don't know if that's just because of the history of him not being consistent, even though he has been more consistent this year. But I just don't know, particularly with Port. You never know when they might try and change something up, thinking about 2027. So yeah, I'd play him when there's no seasonal or cup implications on the line, but I don't know if I'd be looking at playing him if I still have something on the line, or even in a matchup that they might win, or favoured to win. So, but I did go to the game and did tell him that I loved him on Sunday. So, yeah,
Well,
maybe he's feeling really good after that. So
maybe he got his hopes up and he's like, okay, I'm going to finish the season strong for the Peanut Butters, and get them back on the leaderboard.
Well, I do need a new squad name heading into next year, so
there
it's
we
up for
go.
grabs. It's up for grabs.
Hornbag, something.
There's already enough Hornets out there in like GDS names, so but I think I can find something.
Yeah, well, in my notes, I did have no butters, no worries for Port last week, but I did say that from a GDS perspective anyway. So that was Jason Horn, France's first game without butters since that injury. He scored that 135 against the Lions last week, who we know have been a quite restrictive matchup for opposition mids over the last 5 weeks. He did have 71% CBAs, which was the second most for Port behind Miles Bergman, who had 74%. And as you mentioned, consistency. His scores since round 11, 135, 115, 124, 137, 147, 106, 122, and 157. So a low score of 106 since round 11, 8 scores in a row over 105. Even though you said if I was in a cup matchup, I probably looked at maybe not target, but I'm pretty confident in a Horn Francis this week. Yeah, I am. He possesses a ceiling alongside being super consistent. 3 scores over 150. He is the best player in that team without Zach Butters and without Connor Rozee. I don't think the Giants will tag. The Giants are also a side without Finn Callahan this week, who has been ruled out for the season. They are the 8th easiest team to score against for the season, but however, they are the 6th easiest over the last 5 weeks. Last week, Goulden 169, Rowbottom 137, Warner 126. Week before, Merritt 146. Week before that, Baz 145 and Holmes 139. There are points plenty against the Giants midfield as of late, and that's with Finn Callahan in the team. I'm just going to back in Horn Francis, back in the form that he's in, back in the role, and know that he does have potential ceiling in him as well. So, yeah, I like Horn Francis this week.
You know what? I'm changing my mind because I'm starting to have a look at the people because I thought he'd be a lot lower than I thought for my rankings. I'm just going through it. I'm like, all the people that I normally have ahead of him and just wouldn't even think of him are in some pretty poor form. Like Heaney, Merritt, we're not even thinking about. Anderson is a little bit down as well. So there's maybe he will sneak himself into my squad. So any excuse.
So that's probably the thing when I was looking at the matchups for the midfielders this week, and I was going to say this at the start, is there's not a heap of really good matchups. Dawson obviously has the Bombers. Berry has the Bombers, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Yep.
But outside of that, there's no real clear must-target matchups. Obviously, we talked about Dacos flag. We talked about Bailey Smith potential tag flag. Bont's got Freo. Heaney's got Sydney, who could potentially get Windhager, and he's out of form a little bit. Merritt's got Adelaide, who are a tough matchup. So
the name you're missing, you're spot on. The one that you're missing, though, that I'd love to know if you'd put ahead of him, is your boy Will Ashcroft.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, you don't have him on there. Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for raising that. I did forget about that. So Will Ashcroft, as I mentioned at the start, we don't want to add him to the plug and plays, but we also don't want to
have him as the option. Yeah, gotcha.
Fair. Option every week. So we're definitely keen on a Will Ashcroft this week. We just don't want to moz him. So he's definitely in the mix, which is definitely in our sides this week. But the other one would be Ed Richards, another obviously Freo matchup over in the West. Don't love it, even though he's in good form. So when I was going through and having a look at the players, it's just not many matchups I really want to target. And you
Well,
raised a good point. Anderson's not in really good form, but he kind of did bounce back a little bit last week, scored 129 against the Blues, who are a tough matchup at the moment. So I'm just going to go, okay, I might back in Anderson, bounce back. Goulden obviously showed a bit of form last week. Yeah, there's just not really matchups that I absolutely love this week.
yeah, it's thin. I'm keen to talk about points of difference players because I've got one that I sneaky am loving at the moment that's not on your board, but take it away with the two you got.
All right, well, we'll quickly run through the two that I just mentioned, obviously, Noah Anderson and Errol Goulden. So we spoke about it from the start. You talked about it, your star last week being Goulden, 160,
Yep.
169 last
He just
week.
gets fantasy footy.
Oh, he is so good to watch when he's in full flight, and we know how good he is. He was truly back to that best that we know and love in GameDay squad. 41 disposals, 29 of which were kicks, 5 marks, 3 tackles for his season high. Obviously, there. Third banana last week in this one's midfield. Heaney had 71% CBAs, Warner 68%. Goulden had 50%, which is actually down from 56% the week before. So I think it's just going to hover around that 40 to 50% range, which it has since he's returned from injury. The Saints are a neutral matchup for teams to score against for the midfielders. However, they over the last 5 weeks, they've been the 8th hardest team. So the matchup might not be there on paper, but they have allowed the following scores over the last 5 weeks. Shees 136, Simpkin 125, Smith 144, Warple 122, Horn Francis 115, Butters in 112 in 3 quarters with a bit of an asterisk there for injury, and Merritt 130. So there's still points galore, even though they are a slightly negative matchup. I'm just going to back in. Goulden's a gun. He's shown some scoring pedigree now. He's got the form back. I'm just going to back him in.
You're never going to feel bad about not playing Goulden, like about playing Goulden and him having a bad game because he gets more good games than he has bad games. So
exactly.
He's on my list of players that I really hate not playing and then watching.
Yeah,
like, there's a few where like you were talking about before, where if you're getting burned by them, you're like but yeah, no, I don't like getting burned by Goulden because he's so good. So yeah, imagine he'd be in most squads, and he's only at 15% now that I'm checking.
Yeah, so it's actually funny you say that. A couple of weeks ago, I had him as our pod, and just having Errol Goulden as a pod just didn't sit right. But with the play percentages, kind of just had him there, and yeah, he was underwhelming that week. But yeah, he's definitely on coaches' radars now for sure after last week, and I think that percentage will definitely go through the roof in the lead up to this round. That's for sure.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, Nando. Like I said, 129 points last week, but he does face the Demons, who are a neutral matchup for midfielders this season and the 6th hardest team over the last 5 weeks. Last 4 scores against the Ds, 89, 105, 135, and 136. And I think it kind of just comes back to a little bit John Noble as well. Back at home at People First Stadium, I actually like Nando better than I do away. And I'm just going to back in the skipper to really stand up and lead from the front in what is another must-win game for the Suns. We've been saying it for weeks, but we are finally waiting for them to really get that win on the board and kind of, finish the season on a strong note. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of back in the skipper. I don't think he'll get any attention from any of the D's midfielders. So I think I think Gorn come out and said that Petrarca might get some attention, and they'll put some attention into him in the revenge game. So
he might get some from his own teammates. He'll be copping it from everyone.
Exactly. So I think Nando should be free to do whatever he pleases. So he should be good.
Yeah, I don't want any part of the Suns at the moment. Yeah. Noble, Anderson, it's all a bit yucky. I don't want to watch him. I feel bad. Yeah. And yeah, it's good that he bounced back, but he had a poor month before. So yeah. I do want to see it for me. But yeah.
All right. Before we talk about the points of difference on screen, you said you have one that you are keen on. Who would that be?
Yeah, well, one that's going to be close to home to you. He's in some good form. Sam Walsh.
Okay.
Not a name that I think most people who are still in the cups and still hunting seasonal rewards are going to be looking for. But he has been going about 130 over his last few. So yeah. I'm just like, he's there in and about. I don't know if he's definitely not in your plug and play group, but I'd have him up there with my Horn Francis's and thinking about in that group of being like, right, do I love the matchup? Do I think someone's going to go off? So he's who I have as my point of difference player this week. And I don't think he's well selected as well. So
Okay.
against your Lions, though, I'm like, but we've just seen Horn Francis and a few of the boys eat. So I'm like, down to Marvel. He's the one I'm going to be looking at.
Yeah, look, I'm going to say one that I'm not keen on, and just purely for the matchup. Obviously, not only against the Lions, I hope that Sam Walsh has a quiet day. But the Lions are the 5th hardest matchup for opposition mids over the last 5 weeks, and they are the 8th hardest for the course of the season. So I just think that obviously we've seen Sam Walsh kind of probably just be consistent. You know what you're getting from him. Might put 105 on the board. If you are looking for a safe play, maybe at M7, maybe he is your guy. If you are targeting upside, I think the 2 on screen are probably maybe better picks. If you are looking
Yeah,
for
go for it. Make the case.
Real point of difference. So obviously Sam Berry, he's got the Essendon matchup. They are leaking points galore. I'm not going to run through the points that they've conceded over the last 5 weeks because we'll be here all day. We list half the team. He did score 129 points last week against the Pies, and that was thanks to 30 disposals, 5 marks, and 6 tackles. That was only his 4th score over 120 for the season. So that's why I think he's like a big pod. I don't think he's obviously. We talked about Goulden a couple of weeks ago. That was a small pod. I think Berry is a bigger pod this week. He does have a season high 177 GDS points in round 8, and that was against the Power, where he laid a ridiculous 19 tackles in the showdown, which just showcases he does have a ceiling on his day. He scored 146 against the Suns in round 18 as well, showing that he's also got recent form on his side. Coming into the Bombers matchup, I think you can chase that matchup alone. So I definitely don't mind a Sam Berry this week. Once again, locking him into Sundays for sure. Maybe looking to add some salary. But yeah, once again, for those coaches that are maybe looking to chase some points or have a bit of fun, don't mind Sam Berry.
Yeah, don't mind him. He wasn't on my radar. And now I'm looking at it. He probably should be, right? He's up around 120 over the last month. And he's 4% selected. So he's a pod. Yeah. Like we were talking about McCarthy before at 10%. Here we are talking about Berry at 4%. So I like it, and I said before, get the big texter out and highlight everyone that's playing against Essendon because they love leaking points. So I like it.
And then also another one just based on matchup, Timmy Taranto continued his ton run last week, scored 107 GDS points against the Dogs. Last 5 scores, 107, 124, 117, 109, and 133. He is the number 1 CBA player at the Tigers. Went down from 81% the week before to 69% last week, but I don't think that really says much. I think the role is still going to be there for him this week. Has ceiling scores of 144 and 149 so far this season. Mm-hmm. West Coast are the 3rd easiest team for mids to score against and the 5th easiest over the last 5 weeks. We've seen some Johnson 124, Sarong 120, Brayshaw 119 last week, Dunks 150, Ashcroft 128, Bailey 127 the week before. So there's points galore there. And last season, Taranto scored 149 GDS points against the Eagles. And before that, in 2024, 109. So once again, definitely don't mind that for coaches looking for a pod. And once again, locking him into Sundays.
Yeah, very similar sort of numbers to Berry over like the last 2 months season as well. Just a few more selected by. So I think for the same price and the same sort of output, I'd be taking Berry with a few less people selecting him. But another, very similar sort of one. And these games when they've got these 2 teams they've obviously both circled this for like the last 2 months because they can't win any other games. So always throws up a bit of fun. Maybe they'll get up and about and maybe we see, Timmy have one of those 149s that he had a few weeks ago. So,
and he does have the ability to also go forward and kick goals and impact the scoreboard. So, that's obviously potentially where the ceiling score might come from if he can sneak forward and maybe kick a goal or 2 against West Coast, which is definitely a big possibility. So,
like it.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all, but probably not going to go there myself. And just some others before we do move on. If you are looking to target maybe a better matchup for the season, Caleb Sarong and Andy Brayshaw do have the Bulldogs this week, who have been the 4th easiest matchup for mids for the season. However, over the last 5 weeks, they've been the fourth hardest team to score against. So for me, if we're looking at probably one of them, it's probably Caleb Sarong. He's shown some form over the last 4 weeks, 120, 124, 120, and 116 to bounce back after a pretty slow start to the year. I'm not looking to go there personally, but obviously can't begrudge any coaches that will be going there.
Yeah, I think they're really safe picks. If you want to get 120, pick one of those boys.
And maybe if you're looking to fade a Dacos and you maybe think Sarong's got a bit more upside, then yeah, don't mind it whatsoever.
Yeah, I miss picking the wrong one of them. I'd always have one of them in my squad because they'd always score so well. But I'd never get it right. So now I just don't pick either of them, and I just feel at peace with it.
And they don't really hurt you that much, really. Sarong's only had 2 scores above 140 for the season. Brayshaw's very inconsistent when he's going to pop a good score. So, I'm not looking to target that. And I'm with you. I can never pick them as well. So I just look to avoid them completely because I think most of the time there's better matchups or better players. But that does bring us to our rucks this week. Ruck graphic seems to change every week. We've always got something in store for you, or Pity's always got something in store for you, I should say. This week, pretty plain, Pity. Come on, pick up your game, mate. It's not what we expect. Normally used to our ruck roller coaster. But this week, if we're kind of ranking them in order, I actually have the point of difference in Darcy Cameron as the number 1 ruck this week. He's coming up against the Cats, who are the easiest matchup for rucks to score against. We got Luke Jackson against the Dogs, Max Gawn against the Suns, and then Brodie Grundy versus the Saints. Is there anyone there that you would like to talk about, mate, before I kick things off?
No, just that I got the Cameron pick right last week. I was pretty happy about that. And I love playing Grundy, but yeah, I'm more interested. Like, obviously the rucks don't change too much, but I'm really interested in the primetime matchup this week because you get to choose between Jackson, Cameron, and English. And you've got to pick 2 of them. So that's always a tough one. But yeah, take it away.
I'll start with Darcy Cameron, even though he is the point of difference. I think with the matchup, with his form, you've got to really consider him this week. Last 3 scores, 154, 120, and 135. However, just be mindful before that, he had scores of 76, 81, 61, and 82. So
ignore that.
I think so as well. I am leaning towards the side of just ignore that. All of a sudden, he's just remembered how to play football. His recent good scores have been against tough opposition as well, Crows, Blues, and the Kangaroos. He does come up against the easiest matchup for AFL in the AFL for rucks, and that is the Geelong Cats. Obviously, we know Luke Jackson went monstrous. I think who else went massive? Can't remember off the top of my head. Let me bring that up.
Well, while you do that, Cameron is one of only 2 rucks that are actually outperforming their average over the last month out of like your top. It's him and Lloyd Meek. Every other ruck at the moment is just well down or slightly down on what they've been putting out. So yeah, he seems to be the only one in form out of them all. So it's going to be hard not to want to pick him. And it's really, like I said, don't worry about that month before. He's definitely turned it around. So,
yep. I've got those in front of me. I definitely agree with you 100% there. He has turned it around. So Luke Jackson in round 15, 188. Kieran Briggs, round 18, 147. Rowan Marshall, round 19, 160. And last week, Max Gawn, who was a little bit underwhelming, 123. So there is points galore going against the Geelong Cats at the moment. His last 3, 89, which was this year, but we're not going to consider that because it was in his I'm not playing football stage of the season. And then before that, 157 and 166. And I think that's more what we could probably expect from him on Thursday night in our primetime fixture. So I am locking in Darcy Cameron as my number 1 ruck for this week. Now, when it comes to my number 2 ruck, I honestly don't know. I am once again tossing between 2. I'm not considering a Brodie Grundy this week against the Saints.
Okay.
Purely because they are the second hardest matchup for ruck.
With the double,
for ruck this season. I do expect Rowan Marshall to come back into the side. It will be a tag team duo of Marshall and TDK. Even last week, Grundy got off to an absolute awesome start against the Giants, and then all of a sudden just put the brakes on and really disappeared from the game. Scraped his way to, I think it was 126. He just seems to be a really hard watch at times. He's winning so many hitouts, but that's not necessarily translating to massive GDS scores. And his mark numbers are down, his tackle numbers are down. He just looks kind of banged up, looks a little bit tired. So Pity did say that he got rested last week when they were up. So maybe that might be the little bit of boost that he needs. He scored 90, 140, and 102 in his last 3 against the Saints. So really up and down like a roller coaster, as we always say. So I just think there's probably better matchups, and I think Jackson and Gawn do have that this week over Brodie Grundy. But obviously, if you've only got Brodie Grundy cards at your disposal, then you probably will have to play him and just hope for him to be okay. But he's definitely one that, as you mentioned before, is underperforming below his average at the moment.
Yeah, he did, like you said, he did sort of save it last week. I really don't love the ruck matchups this week.
No,
it's almost like I'm sticking with Cameron, and then who do I want to pick? And you can kind of make the case for all of them, but it's not really a positive case. I think I'm going to go Gawn just against Gold Coast. I know it's easy. He's the number 1 ruck for the year, but I just like that a little bit more. And just Jackson, he's obviously had that massive game, a few weeks ago, and just hasn't been putting out the scores that you'd want to see outside of that. So Gawn is always a nice sort of safe bet. And yeah, I think that'll be my 2, Gawn and Cameron this week.
So, yeah, Luke Jackson coming up against the Dogs. So, Tim English is the 5th easiest matchup for rucks for the season. And they have played each other already in round 8 at Marvel. And Luke Jackson scored 141 GDS points.
Right.
Grundy had 138 in round 17, and Rowan Marshall had 104 before that. That's when he was sharing with TDK. So, there are points galore. Recently, though, Nank Moyle and Bailey Williams weren't that great, but I think Luke Jackson's a different caliber of player. Even if he does potentially rest forward, we know that he has the ability to hit the scoreboard, and Freo are really going to test the Dogs' ability to defend, obviously with 3 tools, and if Jackson also shifts forward as well, they'll be stretched really thin. So he has the ability to hit the scoreboard, and whether that's to maybe bring his score up to something respectable or make it a really ceiling score is potentially what's been fluctuating his scoring throughout the year. His time on ground was down at 71% and 72% the last 2 weeks. It just brings me to question, I think they probably in-game resting him a little bit when the game is done. Do they kind of unleash him this week in the home matchup against the Dogs in a big game on Friday night? I think they probably do. I think to probably expect to see that time on ground maybe up towards an 80%. If he's not in the ruck, he is probably resting forward. So I don't mind a Luke Jackson this week, and I think at the moment I narrowly have him ahead of Max Gawn.
Would you be happy if he scored 118 again?
I think this week I would take 118.
Yeah, right. There you go. Well, yeah, that's his second best score in the last 2 months.
I know, and that's the thing. So it's one of those form kind of plays.
Are you hunting that previous matchup and that one with English too much? Maybe, but again, Luke Jackson on his day can score 188. So, yeah.
Yeah, but then once again, saying that Max Gawn, we're talking about players that are underperforming on the average. Yes, Gawn scored 123 last week, but I was expecting that to be
they're all negative, right? You really try to find a reason. So yeah,
140 plus potentially last week is what most coaches probably would have expected from him as a sole ruck, especially with Max Heath out of the side. He did have 139 against the Suns earlier in the season in round 4. But I think that was against Witsy from memory. And I think he will be going up against Ned Moyle. 3 before that, 195 and 93. He doesn't really have a great history against the Suns.
That's probably against Witsy, though, when Witsy would just clamp everyone.
So probably not maybe he might just dominate a Moyle, inexperienced, maybe around the ground. We saw a couple of weeks ago, Gawn had to go behind the ball and play as a loose behind the play when the D's lost a couple of defenders. Max Heath was in the side. I think the decision for me this week, and we say this quite a lot when it comes to the rucks, is it's team dependent. If Max Heath is named, then obviously I'm not touching Max Gawn or going anywhere near him. But if Max Heath is not named, he does go out at solo. Is probably one that you might look to target just purely based on the name of Max Gawn and how consistent he can be. So yeah, between Jackson and Gawn for me for R2 this week.
Can I give you something completely unrelated that has nothing to do this week, but it has
Yep.
something to do with the game on the weekend?
Yep.
I tell you what, Dante Vizentini is a big boy.
He is.
He is a massive boy. Obviously, he's nothing. He's behind Sweet, and he's not relevant now. And I've definitely got my port glasses on for him. But just seeing me in person, seeing how big he was, I was like, all right, I'm gonna take note. I'm gonna make sure I have a few cards just in case, because I think his time will come.
Jordan Sweet's been really good on his own as well. Like recently, they've been working well together.
I don't think anyone would be playing Sweet. I think like 1% or someone. Yeah. If you're playing Jordan Sweet, it's because you've run out of cards to play on the others. But that was one of my takeaways from the game on the weekend. Trying to find some positives in what was a very, very dull second half was Vizentini taking a screamer in front of me. And I'm like, wow. Yeah.
Just kick and play. Keep an eye on him for the future, that's for sure. Alrighty, let's round out the show with our forward line. We got our plug and plays. We have added Brad Hill this week.
Nice. Yeah.
We know that adding players to the plug and plays, it always seems to backfire on us. But we're just so confident in Brad Hill, his role, the team that he's in. I think he scored over 150 probably like 3 weeks in a row. It's just hard to ignore that. You're plugging him in regardless of the matchup. He's got a great scoring history against the Swans, which is matchup for this week. It's just a set and forget until either the role changes or the form looks like it's going to be dropping off, but that doesn't look like that anytime soon. So welcome to the plug and plays, Brad Hill. And for the first time in 2 weeks, the plug and play of Cozzy Pickett will also be getting a run back in our sides. He is coming up against the Suns, probably not looking to tag him after coming off games against Mullen, and then who was that before? Can't remember. He got tagged the week before that as well. Oh, Finn O'Sullivan. Yeah. So tag free. Cozzy, great pick this week. 3 options for round 21. Jordan De Goey. Now, I will say before we move on, Jordan De Goey, I think, is in doubt for this week for Thursday night. I think he's managing maybe a bit of a sickness, illness. So he's potentially in doubt. So keep an eye on the team list that will come out tomorrow, which will be Wednesday, the 29th of July, to see if he is in Collingwood's teams. And obviously making sure you've got a pivot option if you are keen on him, if he is a late withdrawal on Thursday night. Isaac Rankin, obviously Bombers matchup, say less. Don't have to worry too much about that. Plug him in this week. Tom Sparrow, who's been just super consistent for coaches. 2 points of difference. We've got Jack Ross and Tim Kelly. And then our one to avoid, as we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, is Christian Petrarca, despite his coming up against the D's in his revenge game.
Yeah, I don't know what I'll let you touch on that Petrarca one. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I can have another game where I play him and get angry at him.
Yeah.
But just going back to what you had before, Zach Bailey, obviously he's in that zone where he's not on the board, but he's not in the plug and play. How close is he to getting a plug and play while he still has the Lions jersey on?
So this is probably Pity and I Lions bias coming out. We don't want to moz any Lions players that are potentially moving to plug and play territory. So we mentioned Will Ashcroft earlier, and Zach Bailey falls in the exact.
You're doing the
boat.
opposite of what used to happen when I was doing the show with Tom, and he'd just have all the Swans in there. You guys have taken the opposite approach.
No, it just seems to backfire every time, and we just don't want it to happen to
your own boys. Yeah,
fair, our own boys, fair. Key players. So Zach Bailey, here's another one that he is basically a plug and play. And even though the matchup's not great against Carlton, he's got a ceiling. I think you just nearly lock him in the forward line. I actually think the forward line's pretty easy to pick this week.
Yeah, well, you've got a name that I've got in my squad at the moment. So you're missing. So you've got Rankin, obviously, for the matchup. I do love a big forward, and I'm looking at Dilthorpe.
Oh, okay. Don't mind it.
Again, taking that big swing, I'm obviously want to go all in on it and go, all right, if they're going to beat him, hopefully they beat him pretty badly. And I think the Crows need a bounce back win. And that's at home. No, it's in Essendon. Is that Marvel?
It's at Marvel.
At Marvel, okay. Sweet. Of course, it's not at the G. Essendon don't play at the G. So I'm also looking at that. I'd have him in and about for the sort of same reasons that we like probably the Rankin matchup as well. But yeah, outside of that, Sparrow, I've played well with. It's pretty good. It's I think it's my favorite line group to pick from out of all of them at the moment, the forwards.
I think it's probably the easiest line group to pick from at the moment. There's just so many consistent players who have good roles, who obviously been scoring super consistently. It's just hard to kind of veer away from those proven guns. Obviously, I know the plug and plays list is not extremely long, but I think even Isaac Rankin, Tom Sparrow, they've been super consistent. They're probably plug and play territory as well. Even Jordan De Goey's had one bad score in like the last 7 weeks. So it's hard to really fault the forward line, and it's really hard to kind of veer away in another direction. But obviously, we'll talk about Jordan De Goey, as I mentioned, potential injury or illness risk. He's gone 105, 111, and 120 in his last 3 games. His CBAs are right down, though, so that might only be the potential flag in this matchup. He only had 10% CBAs on the weekend and 29% the week prior, which is quite interesting considering how entrenched he was in their midfield mix throughout the middle of the season. So we really are only picking a forward based off these stats. So it's not really like the case with some of the others where we're picking a midfielder in the forward slot. The thing with Jordan De Goey, though, is he pushes right up the ground, gets involved in the transition with his +7s, finds a way into the defensive 50 at times. He impacts the scoreboard. We know he can kick a goal or two. He had 135 points on the Cats earlier this year in round 9. I think if he's fit to play, I think you just pretty much lock him in. And then obviously, like I said, making sure you've maybe got a contingency plan or someone else that you're keen on in case he is late out on Thursday.
Yeah, so we'll find out. They're off Thursday night, right? So we'll get that one early.
Yes, so the team will come out tomorrow. But whether or not he gets named and withdrawn on Thursday, depending on how he feels, is another story. So I obviously have to see with that and just kind of monitor the situation leading into Thursday night's game.
Yeah, right. Do you reckon? Do you put any thought into the Dacos decision into this? Whether if they try and take Dacos out of the middle at all with the tag, or if they try and play him a bit differently, half back, free him up, and De Goey gets more of those CBAs you're worried about?
Yeah, potentially. I'm glad you actually raised it because from memory, when they played Sydney earlier in the year, just bringing it up now, Sydney in round 10. So Nick Dacos got the James Jordan tag, obviously still scored well. Nick Dacos had 46% CBAs, his lowest for the season by far. Next lowest was 71% for a game.
Yeah.
In that game, Jordan De Goey, 96% CBAs, highest by far. Next highest was 71% in round 3. So I think you're definitely onto something. They might look to send Dacos to full forward like they do sometimes. They might try and free him up off the back flank, like you mentioned. So if that's the case, maybe De Goey just does come back into that midfield mix if playing. And if that's the case, then I definitely think you have to lock him into your sides.
Yeah, nice.
Isaac Rankin, Bombers matchup, 120 last week against the Pies. Bombers are the number 1 easiest matchup for the season and the 4th best recently. That's for the midfielders. They are also the 2nd best matchup for forwards this season and the best matchup recently. So regardless of what Rankin plays, purely as a mid, purely as a forward, He's going to score well. The role's there for him. He is entrenched in the CBA mix. He is playing as a pure midfielder at the moment. He could nearly emulate his 190 GDS point performance earlier in the season against Richmond, against the Bombers, if he really wants to this week. His form against the Bombers in previous season isn't great. 85 in round 2 last year, 74 in round 6 in 2024. But I think you just ignore that completely and just lock Rankin in and maybe even look to play some salary on him in standard competitions this week, because I think he's going to be great.
Yeah, I like it. I'm all in.
Obviously, he's our Sunday superstar there as well on the side of the screen. So I know Pity is looking to load up on salary on Isaac Rankin this week.
Yeah, I'm for it. You don't need to talk me out of Rankin. I think he'll be very popular. It's just a question of you add another Crow. So
yeah, that's it. I didn't even really think about Riley Thilthorpe, so I don't mind that shout at all. Could definitely kick a bag. Tom Sparrow, we've had him nearly on as a forward pick, either as an option or a pod for probably, I reckon, 7 weeks straight now. And it's just hard to take him away. Like I said,
solid, yeah.
He's probably in that plug and play territory just based on his consistency. 129 GDS points last week after coming off a monster 154 GDS points the week before. Hasn't dropped below 100 GDS points since round 12, and that was a 96. And before that, he hasn't dropped below 90 since round 6 when he scored 74 against the Lions. Roles there, CBAs are there. He pushes forward, kicks a goal every now and again, tackling machine, good matchup against the Suns. Fifth best matchup for opposition mids this season, and the second best matchup most recently. So I think if you've got a Tom Sparrow card, I know they're hard to come by. You play him this week, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's putting up. We were just talking about Will Ashcroft being on the door of the plug and plays. He's a forward, and over the last month, he's doing Will Ashcroft numbers. So
that's insane.
You play him. Even for me, he's like where I'm sure. Trying to play the pods. He's not the person I'm looking to play the pod with.
All right, so there's 2 other pods on the screen. Does either a Jack Ross or a Tim Kelly interest you?
It's just, when you put it like that, it's like no. But I haven't looked much into the Ross matchup. I was looking at Kelly because I'm a bit like Fez. I'm just always remembering the good times with Tim Kelly. But no, do you want to make the case for it? Because I've kind of got them not in my group at the moment. I was going to say, I'm looking at a couple more people ahead.
Me, if you are looking, I think I've got a Jack Ross ahead of a Tim Kelly. And I think Pity does as well. He came concussion, scored 108 GDS points, 65% CBAs from 70% time on ground. So you probably only expect that to increase now that he's got a little bit of match fitness back as well. 70%, 67%, 69% in his last 3 full games. So maybe not the case. Maybe the time on ground might just hover between that 70 to 75%. But I think with Jack Ross, he's a leader at the Tigers. I think this is a must-win game for the Tigers, to be honest, against West Coast. I think he'll be on the field probably as much as he possibly can be. Up against the Eagles at the MCG, they're the 3rd best matchup for the season, and most recently they are the 9th easiest matchup, so slightly more neutral. He scored 108 against them in round 8 this year and 114 against them in round 19 last year. So the form is on his side, most recent matchups. I think the role is there for him. I think he could be a good pick.
Yeah, right. I didn't even consider them because I was considering a couple of other boys that you don't have on your board, and that was I was looking at Connor Mack.
Yeah, I just don't love the venue or the matchup this week for Connor McDonald, despite the form.
And I was going to say, if you don't like that, then you probably don't like the Ginnivan, who hasn't been a good forward, but Connor Mack was probably the one I'd have in, or I do have in at the moment, in with that group. So I just like the footy he's been playing over the last month a little bit better, and so as opposed to trying to hope that a Ross or a Kelly pops off. Connor Mack's been pretty solid the last month, over 120. So, and with him being, he's still got a pretty high selected percentage, which is a little bit surprising, but I do think I'd be going down that path.
Yeah, I don't mind Connor Mack. Like I said, I just think there's probably better options, better matchups, better venues. He's been in great form, don't get me wrong. He could easily still score 120 and just be that consistent player that you know he's going to be. But I just am looking elsewhere this week. But maybe if a Degoe does get ruled out, maybe Connor Mack potentially does come in as a bit of a replacement there.
I was going to say, you're going to hate the Tasmanian team when they come in, aren't you?
Yes. Until
avoid only play them on away games.
Yes, exactly. And then that brings us to Tim Kelly. And Pity said here that it is a bit of the spicier take of the two pods. Coming off a season high, 133 against the Dockers last week. And it obviously is coming up against the Tigers, who are a positive matchup. Richmond are the better team to target from a midfield perspective. They're the second best for the season and the sixth best most recently. Tim Kelly plays as a pure mid, 85% CBAs in his last two games, and has scored well on the Tigers earlier this season, 111 GDS points. I think for Sundays in the forward line, definitely lock him in. I just don't think I'll be going there in our standard competitions.
Yeah, I won't be there.
And then
sorry, Pity. I think it's too much trying to chase the score from last week.
Yeah.
And I think if he was playing anyone else, you wouldn't think about it. But again, because he's playing Richmond, you're like, oh, maybe. But no, it's a classic. You're sitting there on a Sunday afternoon being like, why did I fall for this? Yeah.
And then obviously that brings us to our void. Christian Petrarca coming up against his old mob. CBAs have been up again recently, 54% and 61% in the last 2 weeks, whereas it was 31% and 24% the 2 weeks prior. He hasn't hit a ton since round 11. The form is not on his side. He's too handball happy. We hate handball happy players at GameDay squad. 19 handballs last week from 26 disposals, 14 handballs from 23 disposals the week prior. He is, even when he does kick it, I know it doesn't really matter from a GameDay squad perspective, but he absolutely butchers the ball. Like, his ball use has been shocking recently. He's out of form. Obviously, we know what happened with Leo Lombard last week. There is a little bit of something happening at Gold Coast at the moment, bit of friction, bit of tension between players. And Max Gawn said to Talkback Radio yesterday that Melbourne will be putting some attention into him in the revenge game. So, yeah, we're just not looking to avoid him based on form, matchup, and even venue as well. I just don't think it will go that way.
Yeah, I was like just a bit of a peek behind the curtain. We're obviously getting into All-Star season. So squads are being put together. Cards for the squads are starting to be looked at. And I was like, oh, someone's one of the people that help us with the All-Star selection. Christian Petrarca's name wasn't in the provisional team. I was like, that's got to be a mistake.
Good.
Yeah, it is amazing. Would you believe it if someone said, hey, Petrarca's going to play all year, but he's not going to be in the All-Star squad? And at the start of the year, you would have been like, how? He's going to be potentially forward 2 behind Sheasel. He almost locked it in. And at the start, he was.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just been, it's almost unbelievable.
The drop-off is unreal. Like you said, from the first couple of weeks where it was 140,
massive
goals, 35 disposals, 3 Brownlow votes. It's just like, where's that player all of a sudden gone? Like, he was seeming to love new life at the Suns, and it just changed very quickly. And obviously the Suns aren't in great form.
Yeah, they changed with him.
It's just, not one to target, that's for sure. But I'm glad he's not in the All-Star conversation, despite the
I think he's in the provisional squad, but he's not in the circle. And it's like, hey, we'll get these cards created just in case they have a bit of a late run. But I'm looking at the people he's going to have to jump. He's going to have to, and again, with no spoilers, he's going to have to be jumping people like Toby Green, who I didn't think would be back as an All-Star. So go figure. Yeah.
I'm actually curious to see, and Pity and I have been talking about this recently, whether or not Tom Sparrow makes his way as an All-Star. I think
he'd have to, right?
5th highest averaging forward now.
He'd almost.
Highest.
Again, yeah, he's played every game and he's got the 5th highest average. Something would have to go very wrong for him to fall out.
Yeah.
Trarka would have to find his form. There'd have to be some crazy stuff going on there. It's more, yeah, he'll be in there. Don't worry. And I'll lock in Zach Bailey for you. I know you don't want to lock him in with your set and forgets. I'll put Zach Bailey in there, set and forget for you guys for the All-Star squad.
Yeah, no, love it. Alrighty, that brings us to our Bro Down Showdown results from round 20. I did peg back another one on Pity, bringing it back to 7-9, which Pity just keeps saying we're going to 10, we're going to 10. That is not the case. I'm the host this week, so I'm changing the rules once again. We are going to the end of the season, so it is going to be whoever's on top. And we have also decided we are playing double points for finals. So we're going to play all the way through finals to see who comes out on top. So last week he decided he wanted to try and play a little bit of a tricky game there with Rowan Marshall. He was waiting to see the teams to see if Tom DeConey got named before changing his selection. Little did he know that Rowan Marshall actually got ruled out. So he should have taken Tom DeConey as his pick, but he has just said it does not count. But it would have been 3-1.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Would have been 3-1 to me, but he has given me 2-1, which still doesn't. I still take the win. Obviously, Jarman Impey 176 over his Miller 130 was a great pick on my behalf. And then Brad Hill 152 over his Isaac Rankin was another awesome pick there. Zach Marrett was a little bit underwhelming for coaches in a good matchup, but obviously Washi was unreal there for Pity when his only tick for the week. So he did make a mistake last week, and he did apologize in Discord for those people that he missed in last week's wheel. So we have added all of your names into this week's wheel as well. And he's actually pre-recorded the wheel spin for us because he is in charge of all wheel spins. So we'll play the pre-recording wheel spin for you here.
Nice, Nate Daddy.
So there we go. Congratulations to my cup opponent from last week, Nate Daddies, who will get some cards from me as a good battle from last week as well. Alrighty, congratulations to Nate Daddies. We will be opening a 9-player common pack. Cal, it is up to you which row Nate Daddies gets. Actually, you know what? I'm going to give away the whole pack to Nate Daddies. So Nate Daddies, we are getting the whole pack. So make sure you message me on Discord to claim your cards. So we have a Mitch Edwards, good player for our under-22 competition there. Josh Sin.
My boy.
Bobby Hill, unfortunately, looks like he is going to be on the out of Collingwood at the moment. Nathan O'Driscoll, Platt. Oliver Hayes-Brown, Silver. Sandy Brock, Platt. Oh, Jesus, this is very grim so far.
This is just worse. You're just making Nate Daddy feel
Nick
worse.
Murray, gold. Oh, my God. Come on. Let's get something in these last two. Billy Dowling, gold. Oh, my.
Yeah.
Oh, my. Nate Daddies, I do apologize.
Congrats, Nate Daddy.
That is grim. That is horrible. So apologies there, mate. But if you do want any of those cards, please make sure you do message me on Discord, and I will get those over to you ASAP.
I reckon they go straight in the exchange.
If he doesn't claim them, they'll go straight into my exchange.
Yeah, not the nicest looking pack you've ever seen.
Alrighty, so that does bring us to our Bro Down Showdown fixtures for round 21. So make sure you comment on the video who you think will win this week's edition. Oh, what did I just do?
You don't have the full screen going. There we go.
There you go. So make sure you comment who you think will win this week's edition in the video, whether that be comment has or comment Pity. So my selections, Miller up against Impey. We've flipped from last week. We've decided to change it around and see how we go. Can Impey go back to back, or can Miller get one up over Impey for me this week? We've got Errol Goulden versus Pity's Noah Anderson. We've got Luke Jackson against Pity's Darcy Cameron. We've got my Isaac Rankin against Pity's Jordan De Goey. Now, I will say there is an asterisk next to Jordan De Goey. If he is ruled out, Pity will pick a replacement player that is non-plug and plays, and he'll let the people know of that change when that happens, if it does happen. So make sure you comment.
Well, I am going to give my comment in here. I'm going to go team has on this one. I think Miller and Impey is the one I'm going back and forth on. I think I just go Miller, but I think I like the Goulden and Rankin more. So even though I'd go him with Darcy Cameron.
That's it. There we go. There's one vote to has. So make sure you drop your comment in the video after it is released. But that it will bring us to the end of our episode. New users, make sure you use the code FBAR26 when signing up to GameDay Squad to get yourself 3 9-player common packs. Cal, thanks, mate, for joining us for our round 21 preview show in Pity's absence. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, mate, sharing some of your insights, despite your, I guess you could say, lowly.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome jumping on and chatting. And hopefully people haven't listened to me and have listened to you. Because, like I said, haven't been fantastic, but it's always great to hear your insights and chat footy, mate. So, yeah, thanks for having me on.
Not a problem at all. And once again, thanks to our listeners. Thanks to everyone that's got involved in our Brodown Showdown. Best of luck to everyone that is in a matchup this week, whether that's Classic Cup or our Fantasy Bros Sunday Showdown knockouts. All the best there. Jenneth, best of luck, mate, for our head-to-head on Sunday. We will have our round 22 preview dropping Wednesday, the 5th of August, across our YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music. So make sure you pay attention for that one. This episode will drop, obviously, when you're listening to it, as of Wednesday, the 29th of July. So once again, thank you. Best of luck for round 21. See you later.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode by the Fantasy Bros. If you want to show your support, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this show on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Also, make sure you check us out on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search @FantasyBros AU.